Good day everyone, my name is Narsa Shane May E. Ando, and this video I am going to share to you my reflections about the 9 different topics. The Declaration of Independence is the document in which Filipino revolutionary troops commanded by General Emilio Aguinaldo, declared the sovereignty and independence of the Philippine Islands from Spanish colonial control after Spain was defeated in the Battle of Manila Bay during the Spanish-American War. On June 12, 1898, the declaration was made in the town of Cavite Viejo, province of Cavite. Ambrosio Rianzares Bautista's Act of Declaration of Philippine Independence served as a foundation for future generations to learn when and how the Philippines were liberated. It gave facts that help us have a better grasp on how the Philippines was liberated from the horrors of Spanish colonization. It only featured the declaration of our independence, but also background information on how things came about, as well as the hardships of Filipinos, are recognized heroes and notably distinguished at the hands of the Spaniards. The Philippine national flag is rectangular in shape with a white equilateral triangle symbolizing liberty, equality, and fraternity. A horizontal blue stripe representing peace, truth, and justice, and a horizontal red stripe representing patriotism and heroism. The sun's 8 rays represent the 8 provinces: Manila, Cavite, Bulacan, Pampanga, Nueva Ecija, Bataan, Laguna, and Batangas, that declared war on each other as soon as the first insurrection was launched. The 3 stars represent the 3 major areas: Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Reading this narrative made me more even grateful that we have heroes who are prepared to give their lives to relieve the suffering of their people. It also allowed me to understand the origins of our current liberty. Knowing our history has progressively made me feel more like a true Filipino who values her heroes and heritage. The Declaration of Independence is an essential aspect of Philippine history because it served as confirmation of our country's declaration of freedom and sovereignty in the face of colonialist and imperialist Spain. With this, we finally have opportunity to reclaim our rights and freedom as a nation, free from the sporadic influence of other countries. This text also represents the struggles and sacrifices of Filipinos who battled valiantly for independence. The discussion of the 1899 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines, Malolos Convention, is about the Malolos Constitution, the first Philippine Constitution and Asia's first Republican Constitution, was developed and enacted in 1899 by the First Philippine Republic, which existed from 1899. The laws of the United States of America ruled the Philippines under the American occupation. On January 21, 1899, Aguinaldo issued what is now known as the Malolos Constitution. The Malolos Constitution is the first significant Filipino document issued by the people's representatives. It is based on democratic traditions that have their roots in American soil. It established a popular, participatory, and accountable government in the Philippines, with 3 distinct branches: executive, legislative, and judicial. I have discovered that the Constitution is one of the most important documents of all time. It has resulted in a country with a strong national government, equal rights, and complete fairness for all. The key elements of the 1899 Constitution are that it established democratic, republican government with 3 branches: the executive, legislative, and judicial. It advocated for religion and state separation. The Treaty of Paris, signed on December 10, 1898, was a peace treaty signed by Spain and the United States that brought the Spanish-American War to a conclusion. The pact granted Cuba freedom from Spain, but the United States gained control of the Philippines, Puerto Rico, and Guam. This lesson taught me that it is critical to have peace talks for the benefit of all nations. I also discovered that there is peace in all things. Because of the predominance of war, peacemaking is required. It is a new phrase established to describe and distinguish efforts aimed at restoring peace in crisis settings. Peace and security are vital components of human life. A peaceful and safe environment is vital to every society because it influences all elements of a country's economic and social growth, and it is a sine qua non for the fulfillment of human rights. I retract with all my heart whatever my words, writings, publications, and conduct have been contrary to my character as a son of Catholic Church. Stated a paper leading many historians and researchers to assume Dr. Jose Rizal withdrew. For decades, individuals seeking the truth have been troubled by doubts, mistrust, and passionate discussions about the veracity of his retraction. One of the most intriguing Jose Rizal concerns was his claimed retraction, which was all about his conversion to Catholicism and all other topics related to it, such as his marriage to Josephine Bracken. The national hero himself was reported to have signed the letter, dated December 29, 1896. Dr. Jose Rizal reawakened their interest in nationalism. He was obsessed with the idea of dying for the sake of his country. He himself had long desired death. His character speaks so loudly that none of Rizal's acquaintances think he wrote a retraction. I, like them, felt that he had not withdrawn before his death. I have always believed in our national hero's convictions and beliefs, and as a fellow Filipino citizen who loves our country, whatever further research that may emerge as to the truth of Rizal's retraction controversy detracts nothing from his grandeur as a Filipino. The United States-Great Britain Convention 1930 was an argument between the governments of the United Kingdom and the United States to definitely delimit the boundary between the North Borneo and the Philippine archipelago. All islands to the north and east of the said line and all islands of the rocks traversed by the said line, should there be any such, shall belong to the Philippine archipelago, and all islands to the south and west of the said line shall belong to the state of North Borneo. And this article benefits us Filipinos because we all know where we belong or what territory we have. And that is what I have learned in this topic. Being able to enjoy independence as a result of great effort and camaraderie offers anyone a delightful sense, but not Aguinaldo, who only experienced a sliver of freedom during his rule. He faced and led another cry for independence, but in the end, he stood in the front of the Filipinos not to declare triumph, but to wave a white flag toward America. The worst mistake a leader can make is to realize there is no other option than to surrender. Emilio Aguinaldo issued a declaration on April 19, 1901 that broke the hearts of thousands of revolutionaries around the country. Many Filipinos welcomed the Americans as liberators and expected independence after defeating Spain, but their hopes were dashed when the U.S. formally annexed the Philippines as part of its peace treaty with Spain. Furthermore, the U.S. refused to recognize Aguinaldo's government, prompting the Philippines to declare war on America on February 4, 1899. Aguinaldo's revolutionaries swiftly resorted to guerrilla methods, resulting in one of America's deadliest battles, but little tangible success for Aguinaldo and his cause. On March 23, 1901, after 2 years of battle, Aguinaldo was captured by American General Frederick Funston. Aguinaldo did not prepare a lengthy speech. He just stated that he was accepting American sovereignty and serving his beloved country. Whatever he said, one thing was certain. This statement marked the end of Aguinaldo's republic and its battle for independence. The Tidings-McDuffie Act, officially known as the Philippine Independence Act, was enacted on March 24, 1934, and defined the procedure through which the Philippines, then an American possession, would become an independent country following a 10-year transition period. This constitution had to provide for a republican system of government, include a Bill of Rights, and promise certain things to the United States until the day of final independence. All ties were to be severed after a 10-year period of progressive retreat known as the Commonwealth era. The goal of the Tidings-McDuffie Act is to provide for the total independence of the Philippine Islands, to provide for the establishment of a constitution and a system of government for the Philippine Islands, and for other purposes. For hundreds of years, the country was colonized by a variety of nations. Considered achieving your independence, after all of your trials and tribulations, it is invaluable. The 1935 Constitution served as a legal foundation for the Commonwealth government, which was considered a transition government prior to the granting of Philippine independence with an American-inspired constitution. The Philippine government would eventually model its government system after the American government. A state's constitution is a vital piece of legislation. It is the set of rules recognized by the people of the state in order to sustain and maintain peace and order in society. Without it, the state will be in disarray. The state's sovereign power will weaken and government will be unable to act effectively. The 1935 Constitution, which included a political system nearly comparable to that of the United States, went into effect. The system called for an at-large election of a president for a 4-year term, a bicameral Congress, and an independent judiciary. This constitution is significant because it appeared to serve the nation well. In this topic, the phrase that caught my attention is the Article 3, Section 1 of the Bill of Rights, which stated, "No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, property, without due process of law, nor shall any person be denied of the equal protection of the laws, and this should be." It was enacted, the clause was interpreted to suggest that the government could only strip a person of rights based on the law as applied by a court. The Bill of Rights is enshrined in Article 3 of the Philippines Constitution. It creates the individual's relationship with the state and defines the individual's rights by limiting the authorized powers of the state. It is considered to be one of the most significant political achievements of the Filipinos. Bataan has fallen. The surrender declaration of Filipino and American forces fighting against invading Japanese forces at the commencement of World War II was broadcast within Malinta Tunnel on April 9, 1942. The Battle of Bataan was fought during World War II by the United States and the Philippine Commonwealth against Japan. It was the most intense phase of the Japanese invasion of the Philippines during World War II. After the bombing of the American naval base at Pearl Harbor in January 1942, forces of the Imperial Japanese Army and Navy invaded Luzon and several other islands in the Philippine archipelago. General Douglas MacArthur, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States and Filipino forces in the Philippines, gathered all of Luzon-based battalions on the Bataan Peninsula to combat the Japanese army. The American surrender at Bataan to the Japanese, with 76,000 soldiers surrendering in the Philippines altogether, was the largest in American and Filipino military histories and was the largest United States surrender since the American Civil War's Battle of Harper's Ferry. Soon afterwards, U.S. and Filipino prisoners of war were forced into the Bataan Death March. The phrase, "Bataan has fallen, but the spirit that made it stand, a beacon to all the liberty-loving peoples of the world, cannot fall." This phrase affects me because this shows fearlessness to be a brilliant example of our people and country's endurance and perseverance. The spirit that gave our country its foundation cannot be broken, and this is what I've learned in this topic.